Hello. Today we are looking at the properties of real numbers. Each property will be shown, then the property demonstrated will be defined and explained in the next slide. The first property is 5 plus 3 equals 3 plus 5. What property is this? The answer is the commutative property of addition. The order of the numbers changes, but the numbers do not change. The sum remains the same. The next property is 2 plus the parentheses 3 plus 5 equals the parentheses 2 plus 3 plus 5. What property is this? The answer is the associative property of addition. The numbers remain in the same order. The parentheses move to group different numbers. The sum remains the same. The next property is 5 times 3 equals 3 times 5. What property is this? The answer is the commutative property of multiplication. The order of the numbers changes, but the numbers do not change. The product remains the same. The next property is 2 times the parentheses 3 times 5 equals the parentheses 2 times 3 times 5. What property is this? The answer is the associative property of multiplication. The numbers remain in the same order. The parentheses move to group different numbers. The product remains the same. The next property is 5 times 1 equals 5. What property is this? The answer is the identity property of multiplication. The product of any factor n1 equals the value of the original factor. So when you see that we ended with the same number we started with, that's an identity. The next property is 5 times 0 equals 0. What property is this? The answer is the zero property of multiplication. The product of any factor n0 is 0. The next property is 5 plus negative 5 equals 0. What property is this? The answer is the inverse property of addition. The sum of a number and its opposite on a number line equals 0. The next property is 3 times 1/3 equals 1, and 1/3 times 3 equals 1. What property is this? The answer is the inverse property of multiplication. The product of any number and its reciprocal equals 1. Notice 1/3 is the reciprocal of 3, and 3 is the reciprocal of 1/3. The next property is 2 plus 0 equals 2. What property is this? The answer is the identity property of addition. The sum of an addend n0 results in the value of the original addend. As before, an identity ends with the same number it started with. The next property says 5 plus 9 equals 14. 5, 9, and 14 are real numbers. What property is this? The answer is the closure property of addition. For all real numbers a and b, the sum of a plus b is also a real number. The next property says negative 7 times 2 equals negative 14, where negative 7, 2, and negative 14 are integers. What property is this? The answer is the closure property of multiplication. For all integers a and b, the product of a times b is also an integer. The same thing is true for natural numbers. The last property says 2 times the parentheses 3 plus 5 equals 2 times 3 plus 2 times 5. What property is this? The answer is the distributive property of multiplication over addition. We normally just call it the distributive property. When addends inside a parentheses are multiplied by a factor outside the parentheses, each addend must be multiplied by that factor. That was our last property. Thank you for watching.